Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naitiki. So as we know, the weekends are for Bhagavad Gita class. So we were discussing fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text number 20 onwards. So in the text 19, Krishna said, one is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burnt up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Prabhupada writes, only a person in full knowledge can understand the activities of a person in Krishna consciousness. So the knowledge is very, very important. And this chapter is also called Transcendental Knowledge. But still, the work has to be done. Like in this verse only, it is said, he is said to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burnt up by the fire of perfect knowledge. The work has to be done. In nowhere Krishna says, don't do the work. You just do the work with the right knowledge, under the having the right consciousness. Do the work. So text 20 onwards. Tyaktva karma phala sangam nityatripto nirashvaya karmani abhi pravrito api nav kinchit karoti sa. Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. So he means the person in full knowledge. So he's not attached to the results of his activities. He's always satisfied and independent. He performs no fruitive action. It doesn't mean he doesn't do activity. He does activities, because that's what it says. Although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. So what is that knowledge that one needs before one does the activities like that? Nishkam Karma Yoga platform. So that knowledge is ultimately that everything belongs to Krishna. Krishna is the proprietor of everything, controller of everything, enjoyer of everything. But I still have to do my duty. This freedom from the bondage of actions is possible only in Krishna consciousness, where one is doing everything for Krishna. A Krishna conscious person acts out of pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he has no attraction for the results of the action. He is not even attached to his personal maintenance, for everything is left to Krishna. But that doesn't mean he becomes lazy. It doesn't mean he becomes careless. It doesn't mean he becomes like completely, he just doesn't care for anything. No, he does. Because again, when somebody loves Krishna and he is working for him, then he will do his best. Because this is what gives him full satisfaction. And this is what is going to please Krishna. He knows that. But he does his best without attachment to the results. Of course, it's a very, very high stage, highly elevated stage. It's a difficult stage. It's not easy to attain. Because we do activities because we want something out of it. Even if somebody does some pious activity, gives some donation or something, because then he wants something out of it. Even if he doesn't want his name, he says, oh, it's anonymous donation, but he still gets mental satisfaction. But in Krishna's service, even if one does not get mental satisfaction will be there, but even if he doesn't get any kind of recognition for anything, he still performs his duties very nicely. We were studying about Bhishmadev. Throughout his life, he didn't get any recognition, although he had all the qualities. He didn't get any proper respect by Duryodhana and party. but still he did his duties. And even in the end, he had to fight against Krishna's dear devotee, Arjun. And he did it very nicely. So much so that he pleased Krishna by his service. So only thing he got was at the very last moment of his life, when Yudhishthira Maharaj came and pleaded to him, and then Krishna himself was present when Bhishmadev left his body. So that's the only, like we can say, remuneration a devotee wants. Just pleasure of Krishna. That's it. It's a very elevated position, but slowly, slowly we can work towards that. And this is Prabhupada writing. He's not even attached to his personal maintenance. For everything is left to Krishna. Nor is he anxious to secure things, nor to protect things already in his possession. He does his duty to the best of his ability and leaves everything to Krishna. Such an unattached person is always free from the resultant reactions of good and bad. It is as though he were not doing anything. This is a sign of akarma, or actions without fruitive reactions. In previous verses, someplace Krishna did say, only an intelligent person knows what's action in inaction and inaction in action. Therefore, any other action, therefore, devoid of Krishna consciousness, is binding upon the worker, and that is a real aspect of vikarma, as explained herein before. And then Prabhupada explains further, Nirashirya chitatma tyakta sarva parikriha shariram kevalam karma kurvannatnoti kilbisham. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus, working is not affected by sinful reactions. So he gives up all sense of proprietorship. So only a devotee can do this. Why only a devotee? Why not a jnani or a yogi? Because even yogis, they don't give up sense of proprietorship over their possessions, because they still think I am the possessor of these 8 siddhis. Ashta siddhis are mine. For whatever purpose he can use it for, but he still thinks they are mine. But a devotee never even thinks anything is his. A Krishna conscious person does not expect good or bad results in his activities. His mind and intelligence are fully controlled. So these are all the barometers Prabhupada has put in front of us. Slowly, when we progress, Prabhupada says his mind and intelligence are fully controlled. And so we are trying to be a devotee. We are trying to be Krishna consciousness. He knows that because he is part and parcel of the Supreme, the part played by him as a part and parcel of the whole is not his own activity, but is only being done through him by the Supreme. When the hand moves, it does not move out of its own accord, but by the endeavor of the whole body. A Krishna conscious person is always dovetailed with the supreme desire, for he has no desire for personal sense gratification. The Prabhupada again and again talking about this part of a machine, or hand being part of the body. A part of the body is not independent of the body. It's completely dependent. And similarly, part of a machine is dependent on the machine. So we are dependent upon Krishna for everything. Like Prabhupada said, hand cannot move without the sanction of the body. So similarly, we cannot move without the sanction of the Supreme. But the real activity of the part of the body is to serve the body. So similarly, our real position, constitutional position or activity is to serve the Supreme Lord, because we are part and parcel of Krishna. We are not independent of Krishna. We cannot be away from Krishna. Either we are in his internal energy, Yogmaya, or we work under his material energy, Mahamaya. But we have to act under one of his energies, so we cannot run away. So we have to come to this understanding. As soon as we understand this, that we are part and parcel of Krishna, and our job is to serve Krishna, and we act on that understanding, then we can become Krishna conscious in no time. This is the only problem. We don't come to that understanding. Or even if there is theoretical understanding, the practical aspect of it, that takes long time. It takes time. Because so many lifetimes, millions and millions of lifetimes, we are trying to enjoy separately from Krishna. We are trying to think that, we have been thinking that I am the controller of everything. I'm the proprietor. I'm the enjoyer. But no such thing is ever going to be possible. We cannot control anything. We can't even control our own body. How can we even think of controlling the whole society or the country or the whole earth or whatever? We can't. And Prabhupada gives another example. A cruel proprietor of an animal sometimes kills the animal in its possession, yet the animal does not protest, nor does it have any real independence. A Krishna conscious person, fully engaged in self-realization, has very little time to falsely possess any material objects. For maintaining body and soul, he does not require unfair means of accumulating money. He does not therefore become contaminated by such material sins. He is free from all reactions to his actions. So that's a Krishna conscious person. And Prabhupada did mention, he said, like, if somebody wants to know who are the devotees of the society, Prabhupada said they'll be perfect gentlemen and perfect ladies. They'll be like the role model in the society. Yadricha lava santushto dvandva tito vimatsara samaha siddhava siddhocha kritvapi na nipadyate. He who is satisfied with gain which comes of his own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. Again, Krishna has very high hopes from all of us. He says he is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord. Means he doesn't do extra endeavor to make money. Free from duality. Duality means happiness and distress, joy and sadness, whatever. Does not envy. Wow, it's very difficult. We all get envious of others who have something better than us, who have something more than us. Who is steady in both success and failure. So that is the definition of yoga. In the previous chapter, Krishna talks about that. One who does not get disturbed, he is in yoga. Yoga samatvam uchyate. Is never entangled, although performing actions. So very, very important for us. Prabhupada explains, a Krishna conscious person does not make much endeavor even to maintain his body. He is satisfied with gains which are obtained of their own accord. He neither begs nor borrows, but he labors honestly as far as in his power, and is satisfied with whatever is obtained by his own honest labor. Prabhupada saying he doesn't even borrow, means he doesn't take any loan for house or car or anything else. That we have to be practical, whatever, that's up to us, how we work it out. But the idea is he has to live honestly and simply. That's a symptom of a Krishna conscious person. He does not accept engagement in anyone's service if it might hamper his own service in Krishna consciousness. However, for the service of the Lord, he can participate in any kind of action without being disturbed by the duality of the material world. For the service of the Lord, he can take up any service, any activity, no problem. The duality of the material world is felt in terms of heat and cold, or misery and happiness. Krishna conscious person is above duality because he does not hesitate to act in any way for the satisfaction of Krishna. Therefore, he is steady both in success and in failure. And then Krishna explains, Gat sangasya muktasya jnanavastita chetasa yagyaya charata karma samagram praviliyate. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. So work of that kind of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature, then it becomes transcendental in nature itself. The work also becomes spiritual. Becoming fully Krishna conscious, one is freed from all dualities and thus free from the contaminations of the material modes. He can become liberated because he knows his constitutional position in relationship with Krishna, and thus his mind cannot be drawn from Krishna consciousness. And just imagine this, Krishna is telling all this to Arjun, and he wants Arjun to fight. Arjun didn't want to fight, and Krishna is telling the whole Gita to Arjun, basically to prepare him for fighting. But preparing him for fighting with the right consciousness. That is most important. So he's telling Arjun, so work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature, it becomes spiritual. So your fighting will also become spiritual if you act in this way. Consequently, whatever he does for Krishna. So who is the primeval? Vishnu. Therefore, all his works are technically sacrifices, because sacrifice aims at satisfying the Supreme Vishnu or Krishna. So then whatever he does, it becomes a sacrifice. Sacrifice in a yajna. Like in a yajna, when you do yajna, we perform sacrifices. So the person who is engaged in all kinds of activities, but as a matter of service to Krishna, in full Krishna consciousness, then whatever he does, it becomes a sacrifice, means it becomes purified. And now Krishna will explain different kinds of sacrifices. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir, Brahmagno Brahmanahutam, Brahmev ten Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. Means consummation, whatever is offered is spiritual, and whatever is accepted is also spiritual. And the fire is also spiritual. In this case, if one acts in complete Krishna consciousness. How activities in Krishna consciousness can lead one ultimately to the spiritual goal is described here. There are various activities in Krishna consciousness, and all of them will be described in the following verses. But for the present, just the principle of Krishna consciousness is described. A conditioned soul entangled in material contamination is sure to act in the material atmosphere. The process by which the conditioned soul can get out of the material atmosphere is Krishna consciousness. Means again and again, Prabhupada, that's why he named the society Krishna Consciousness, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Means we have to purify our consciousness. We have to engage our consciousness in the service of Krishna. And then when that happens, the activities will definitely become spiritual. Just like in the verse it is explained. The sacrifice is spiritual and the activities also become spiritual. The more the activities of the material world are performed in Krishna consciousness or for Vishnu only, the more the atmosphere becomes spiritualized by complete absorption. The word Brahma means spiritual. The Lord is spiritual, and the rays of his transcendental body are called Brahmajyoti, his spiritual effulgence. And Prabhupada later on writes, when the mind is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it is said to be in samadhi or trance. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yajna or sacrifice for the absolute. So that consciousness is what we have to attain. Devameva pareyagyam yogina paripasate brahmagnava pareyagyam yagye nava pujyayati. Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. So here Krishna is talking about different people in different varnashram and how they can make the sacrifices and how they can make the activities spiritual. So some yogis perfectly worship the demigod by offering different sacrifices, and some offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman, means Supreme Brahmajyoti. There are others who perform similar sacrifices in the worship of demigods, and still others who sacrifice to the Supreme Brahman or the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord. So there are different kinds of sacrifices in terms of different categories. So sacrifice, what is the real purpose of sacrifice? Here, if it is not done directly for the pleasure of Krishna, then the sacrifice, at least, it elevates us, it purifies our consciousness, in the sense that we understand that we, like in the third chapter only it was said, without sacrifice, a person cannot be peaceful. And if he is not peaceful, he cannot be happy. So these sacrifices are important in Varnashram Dharma to purify a person, that he cannot live without sacrificing his possessions for a higher pleasure, for the higher benefit. Of course, the topmost benefit and topmost sacrifice is to do everything in the service of Krishna. But those who still cannot, they do some sacrifices. They should, to at least purify gradually. So that sacrifice is very important. And these sacrifices, Krishna is explaining in Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada is explaining in his purport. So yogis do the perfect worship of demigods by offering different sacrifices, and some offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. So fire of the Supreme Brahman means they do the sacrifice in terms of meditation. When they sit down and do this Hatha Yoga of meditation, then they are doing some sacrifice. Sacrifice of the time, of the effort, the money. So sacrifice is there for the pleasure of higher somebody. But one who has become a devotee of Krishna or is trying to become a devotee of Krishna, it is said that that's like in Bhagavatam it is said, that one who's always chanting the glories, the holy names of the Lord, means he has done all these yagyas and tapas and jnana and everything, and traveled to different places of pilgrimage, everything he has done in his previous lives. So somehow or other, now he's got a chance to serve the Supreme Lord properly. So for the Prabhupada's writing, in other words, the fruitive workers sacrifice their material possessions for material enjoyment, whereas the impersonalist sacrifices his material designations with a view to merging into the existence of the Supreme. Means the fruitive workers, what do they do? That's like we have seen, say like Satyanarayan Puja. So it's a karma kanda ritual. So persons who is hosting this Satyanarayan Puja, First of all, they have to prepare everything. That's a big sacrifice because nobody wants to do all this puja. They would rather watch TV or go and do something else. But they have to sacrifice their propensity to enjoy themselves. So they are engaged in Satyanarayan Puja. And in the puja also, they have to sacrifice lots of things. So it means they have to arrange for prasadam, they have to make prasadam, they have to give some donation to the pandit or whatever they have to do. So sacrifice is there. But their idea of sacrifice is to get some more material possessions for material enjoyment. So their gain is limited and their desires are also very, we can say, petty desires. This is what Arjun also asked Krishna in the beginning, that Karpanya dosho pahat svabhava. I'm acting like a miser. Miser means we're not fully utilizing the assets that we have, especially this human body and human intelligence. If I use this intelligence, which is such a superior intelligence that Krishna has given me, if I use it, or we can say abuse it, just to get some little bitty benefits. Like a person, if he could make billions of dollars, and if he stays at home, oh, I'm satisfied with only $1,000. Well, he can remain satisfied, but he can make billions of dollars without any extra effort. So similarly, as human beings, our best sacrifice is to please Krishna. Second best is to please ourselves. Now it depends, what do we want to do? Here the fruitive workers, they do sacrifice lots of material possessions, but the aim is material enjoyment. Basically, if they give like maybe 1,000 rupees and in the return they want 1 lakh rupees. That's the whole idea. And then the impersonalist, who first, the fire altar of sacrifice is Supreme Brahman, and the offering is the self being consumed by the fire of Brahman. Means they want to sacrifice for the Brahman Jyoti, they want to sacrifice their life, their energies, their efforts to do what? To merge in Brahman Jyoti. That's their aim. But that's also not the topmost aim, according to Bhagavad Gita. The Krishna conscious person, like Arjun, however, sacrifices everything for the satisfaction of Krishna. And thus all his material possessions, as well as his own self, everything is sacrificed for Krishna. Thus he is first class yogi. Because this is what Krishna explains in 5th chapter, or in 6th chapter, end of 6th chapter. Of all the yogis, the best is the one who surrenders unto me, or who does my bhakti. And then others, how do they sacrifice? Shrutra dini indriyanyanye sanyamanishu juvati. Shabda dini vishyananya indriyagnishu juvati. Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control. And others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. So sacrifice is important for everybody. So brahmacharis, what do they sacrifice? They sacrifice the hearing process. Because as we have read earlier, hearing is the most important and is the first activity that we do to make progress in Krishna consciousnness. So brahmacharis are supposed to be making progress in the spiritual path. So what do they do? Because the hearing process is the most important. So they sacrifice in the fire of mental control. And then what do they get in return? Proper hearing of anything, everything except Krishna. Everything that is not related to Krishna consciousness, they don't want to hear it. Because they want to control themselves mentally and they want to utilize the hearing process in the service of Krishna. The members of the four divisions of human life, namely the brahmachari, the grihastha, the vanaprastha, and the sannyasi, are all meant to become perfect yogis or transcendentalists. Since human life is not meant for enjoying sense gratification like the animals, the four orders of human life are so arranged that one may become perfect in spiritual life. The brahmacharis or students under the care of a bona fide spiritual master control the mind by abstaining from sense gratification. A brahmachari hears only words concerning Krishna consciousness. Hearing is the basic principle for understanding, and therefore the pure brahmachari engages fully in Hare Nam and Kirtana. So brahmachari word comes from not just a celibate or a person who is not married yet. Brahmachari word comes from Brahm Acharti iti brahmachari. Means one whose activities, whose all his thought process is engaged in the service of Brahman. Now that Brahman could be just Brahmjyoti, or that Brahman could be Parabrahman Krishna. But that is the meaning of brahmachari. It's not just, oh, I'm not married, so I'm a brahmachari. No, that's not right. What are your activities? That actually will make sure whether one is a brahmachari or not. He restrains himself from the vibrations of material sounds, and his hearing is engaged in the transcendental sound vibration of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Similarly, the householders who have some license for sense gratification perform such acts with great restraint. Sex life, intoxication, and meat eating are general tendencies of human society. But a regulated householder does not indulge in unrestricted sex life and other sense gratification. So householders have every single chance to indulge all these activities. But they have to control themselves, they have to restrain themselves for a higher cause. That this marriage on the principles of religious life is therefore current in all civilized human society, because that is a way for restricted sex life. This restricted, unattached sex life is also a kind of yajna, because the restricted householder sacrifices his general tendency towards sense gratification forward for higher transcendental life. Then Krishna talks about others. Sarvani indriya karmani, prana karmani cha pare, atma sanyam, yogagno, juvati jnana dipite. Others who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and senses offer the functions of all the senses and of the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. Now, achieving self-realization through control of mind and senses, that is a yogi, one who wants to go and do tapasya. He offers the functions of all the senses and of the life breath, because this is what he wants to control, into the fire of the controlled mind. So Prabhupada talks about yoga system of Patanjali. In the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, the soul is called Pratyag Atma and Parag Atma. As long as the soul is attached to sense enjoyment, it is called Parag Atma, but as soon as the same soul becomes detached from such sense enjoyment, it's called Pratyag Atma. So this Pratyag Atma, according to yoga system, Pratyag Atma is the ultimate goal. This Pratyag Atma is withdrawn from activities and matter. So this is the ultimate goal. But like Krishna also said in second chapter, to withdraw the activities from the matter, activities of the soul from the matter, it's not actually possible or practical in this day and age, especially in Kali Yuga. Why? Prabhupada himself gave the answer that the soul is always active. Soul does not just go off to sleep. Soul is always active, so he has to do something. And here yogis try not to do anything. So then to control the soul is very, very difficult. To first of all, to control the mind from all types of sense enjoyment activities, it's very difficult. So the process of bhakti yoga is when we give higher taste, higher activity to the soul to work upon. Okay, you have to do this. Then that activity actually liberates the soul. Dravya yagyastato tapo yagya yog yagyastata pari swadhyaya yagyan yagyascha yatyah sanchit vrataha. Having accepted strict vows, some being enlightened by sacrificing their possessions and others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. So the four different kinds of people are there. So karmis, they get enlightened by sacrificing the possessions. Yogis, they perform severe austerities by practicing yoga of eightfold mysticism, or eightfold process that, what is it called? Pranayam, pratyahar, yogasana, pranayam, pratyahar, then dharan, dhyan, samadhi, something like that. I don't remember all the 8 activities right now. And then the jnanis, they want to study the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. So they also sacrifice all of the activities, all of their desires to other activities, they sacrifice those and they engage themselves in study of the Vedas to know more and more about Krishna. But without sacrifice, one cannot attain, one cannot be purified. That's why this sacrifice is very important. Apane jivati pranam, prane apanam tatha pare, prana apana gati rupa, pranayam parayana, apare niyata ahara, pranan praneshu jivati. Still others who incline to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance, practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing. Thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others, curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. So again, different types of sacrifices are mentioned. So there are yogis who want to restrain the movement of process of breath. So they offer incoming breath into outgoing, which is called Kumbhak and Rechak or Purla, something like that. Offering the exhaled breath into the inhaled breath is called Rechak. When both air currents are completely stopped, one is said to be in Kumbhak Yoga. By practice of Kumbhak Yoga, one can increase the duration of life of perfection and spiritual realization. So how? Actually it is said our duration of life is calculated according to the number of breaths we take. The duration of life is fixed. Okay, these many number of breaths this person is going to take in this lifetime. So that's how the life cycle, life age, duration is calculated. Well, that's why one of the reasons which I think Prabhupada has written somewhere, that the athletes, they die early because they have already used up their breaths in exercising. So they breathe more and they breathe heavily and they die early actually. Of course, they die healthy. That is more important, but the quality of life is more important, the duration of life. And at the same time, the business people, especially in India, who just sit down at the seat, hardly move. So they also basically end up controlling the breath. Knowingly or unknowingly, they end up doing that. Of course, not in the same way as a yoga, but still they don't breathe that much as a person who's an athlete. So these people, actually live longer. Although they might live unhealthy life because lifestyle is not very conducive, but they live longer compared to the athletes. And then Prabhupada always brings the purport to Krishna conscious person. A Krishna conscious person, however, being always situated in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, has no chance of becoming otherwise engaged. So at the end of his life, he is naturally transferred to the transcendental plane of Lord Krishna. Consequently, he makes no attempt to increase his longevity. So he can stay longer, but he does not want to. He wants to go back to Krishna. Sarve api ete yajnavido yajnakshapitkanchah yajnashishtavarakabujo yanti brahma sanatanam. All these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions. And having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifices, they advance towards the supreme eternal atmosphere. So they have tasted the nectar of the result of sacrifices. Just like Maharaj Rishabdev in Bhagavatam also speaks about, to his sons, he says, one should always perform tapasya, divya tapasya, tapo divyam yad. He says, tapo divyam, yena putraka, yena putraka sambhavam, something like that. I'm forgetting the whole verse. But all it meant was, one who has a human body, he should perform tapasya for the satisfaction of the Supreme. And in the end, what he'll get unlimited spiritual happiness. Because by doing this tapasya, one becomes eligible to go back to the spiritual world. And there he enjoys unlimited spiritual happiness. Brahm Sokyam Tad Anantam. Text 31. Nayam loko asti ayagyasya kutonya kurusattama. O best of Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next? So sacrifice is very, very, very essential for all the human beings. But then we have to see what kind of sacrifice we're performing. Is it the sacrifice in order of goodness, passion, or ignorance? That we have to see. Whatever form of material existence one is invariably ignorant of its real situation. In other words, existence in the material world is due to multiple reactions to our sinful lives. Ignorance is the cause of sinful life, and sinful life is the cause of one's dragging on in material existence. So it's like a self-revolving cycle. By ignorance, we come into material existence, and once we are in material existence, we get more and more ignorance because we are in complete darkness. So where is the way out of this cycle? It is explained nicely in Nectar of Devotion book. So the way out is, if some sage or some devotee of the Lord, he helps us. Okay, this person is in ignorance, he does not have knowledge, let me give him knowledge. And by giving him knowledge, then this cycle of birth and death comes to a stop. Human form of life is the only loophole by which one may get out of this entanglement. The Vedas therefore give us a chance for escape by pointing out the paths of religion, economic comfort, regulated sense gratification, and moksha. So the Prabhupada writes towards the end, a life of Krishna consciousness is therefore the solution to all the problems of material existence. Everything, all the problems can go away just by bhakti. Text 32. Evam bahuvida yagya vitata brahmano mukhi karma jana vidhitam sarvan evam gyatva vimokshase. All these different types of sacrifices are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. So this Krishna is telling. So last verse for today, text 33. Shreyam dravyam ayadyagya gyan yagya parantapa sarvam karma akhilam artha jnani varisamapyate. O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, the son of Pritha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. So the purpose of all sacrifice is to attain the status of complete knowledge, then to gain release from material miseries, and ultimately to engage in loving transcendental service of the Supreme Lord. So that is the whole purpose of all the sacrifices that we study. And once who has a knowledge, his sacrifice is considered better because he is doing it knowingly. Without the elevation of knowledge, sacrifices are simply material activities. When, however, they are elevated to the level of transcendental knowledge, all such activities enter into the spiritual platform. Depending on differences in consciousness, sacrificial activities are sometimes called karmakanda, sometimes jnanakanda. It is better when the end is knowledge. So knowledge is very, very, very important. And that's why Prabhupada has given us so many books, so much of literature he has given for us to understand properly what we are doing, why we are doing. Okay? So it's already 9:30, I think. So any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you very much for the session. Actually, I was not aware that this Purak Kumbhak Rechak is also there in our scripture before. So this out actually earlier when I was in Shivananda Ashram for my yoga course. So yeah, actually breathing is, but we also practice the same. Like everyone is aware that human lifespan is only nowadays 70 till 80 maximum. So like it has been, like if we see the tortoise breed is only like 4 times per minute. That is why his lifespan is like tortoise lifespan is 150 years. So the lower the breed rate, it seems like higher the lifespan. That is actually fact. So we should always focus on deep breathing, that is called full yogic breathing, minimum for 5 minutes every day to get a healthy lifespan. Because human breathe rate is 15 like in a minute. So if we can make it till like 10, 9, so I think we can live a healthy life. Also, that japa, no, that day I was sharing my experience about the chanting. So I was trying to practice Purak, Kumbhak, and Rechak, like uh, inhaling deeply and with the mantra, and holding Kumbhak as much as I can with the mantra again, and the Rechak with the mantra. So that way, if I do it, that is my personal experience. So that is I'm sharing with you all. That way, I was feeling so hungry. If I was when I was practicing that for half an hour, I got tremendous. I mean, I would say strength in me.
Okay.
So that is a different feeling, I would say. So I think we should all practice deep breathing, minimum 5 minute every day.
Yes. As you said, deep breathing is important for the healthy body. It's really like in pranic healing also they teach us deep breathing. It increases or purifies our aura and makes the aura bigger also. Energy body becomes bigger and healthier. So it's good for a healthy body. But then again, if the consciousness is not proper, then what do we do with the healthy body? It's a problem.
Yeah, so like I'm asking you, like the way I was chanting, like with the breathing. So is it not good, or we can practice that way also?
See, chanting is a different, is bhakti yoga. It's complete yoga in itself.
Mm-hmm.
So if we try to add this breathing technique with chanting, which is already a perfect process, but we add something, then we might not have full concentration on chanting. We might be concentrating on a breath.
Okay.
That could be inattentive chanting. That could lead to inattentive chanting.
Okay.
But breathing otherwise to keep the body fit is very good. Yeah, if we can do this yogic breathing.
Mhm.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Prabhuji,
Krishna.
how do we kind of stay detached from the result as is mentioned in text 21? For example, even if like I go to temple, desire to वही रहता ना वहाँ पे that I take darshan of the Lord, some kind of desire is still there. Yeah.
Oh, that desire is okay. That desire is part of bhakti. We're not saying we're going to become desireless. So to become Krishna conscious, it is a perfect desire to have.
And then otherwise as well, to remain detached from the result of activity, so is chanting the only way या कुछ और भी है? Because anything that we do, तो the conditioning is so much it has happened कि something, I mean, even if you cannot define it, but that some expectation is always there.
Well, all the 9 processes are there. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Path Sevanam. So we do physical service also. So somehow or other we have to get attached to Krishna. Like Nectar of Devotion says, no, there are only 2 rules. Actually, there are only 2 rules. Every other law, rule, principle in the Vedas, they are servant of these 2 rules. And the 2 rules that, like the cardinal principle, is always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. That's it. Means, and remember favorably, not unfavorably. So anyway, we can do that. If chanting takes us there, great. If you want to do something more, do physical service, do some mental service, or do some studies. Anything that helps in getting us attached to Krishna, that will definitely bring about detachment from material world.
But Prabhuji, sometimes when we meet personally, I say, "बैठ के I need to understand this entire process थोड़ा सा." Because I primarily
Maybe
where I'm
because
coming from is office life का जैसे होता है. So primarily I'm coming from there because it's a rat race and it's a dog eat dog's world. I mean everything and anything that you do invariably अगर नहीं भी कर रहे हो तो somewhere that cycle again starts even if you're not attached. So perhaps I need to sit with you and understand.
well, better than me, I think Radhakrishnan Prabhu is a better person who can explain this better because he's working and he's doing wonderful services at the same time.
Wow, wonderful. We'll
So
spend some time at Puri Radha Prabhuji together
yeah, you should.
and I'll understand from you.
Yeah, he's the best example for this.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Probably one thing is has come up again and again, like chanting is your first service, but now we also like we can do any of the 9 processes. So it's little should we like do the chanting like and focus more on chanting and then do some other thing, you know. So
That depends at a particular time what the priority is. Suppose a mother has to cook for the deity. I mean, if she said, no, I'm going to chant right now and then I'll get up and cook, everybody is hungry. It's going to be a problem. So, time, place, you have to see what the priorities could be. Right? Chanting, obviously, the most important, but other activities also important because we are not at the level of Haridas Thakur where we can just chant and become perfect. We have all our senses are going haywire, so we have to somehow control them. So along with chanting, other services are also very important. And here the knowledge, Krishna is talking all about knowledge, so we have to study scriptures also. Prabhupada's books as well, we have to study.
So, like, if I'm doing my rounds and after eight rounds I'm not getting any taste, should I drop the round? Matlab, sometimes I think I drop the rounds and start reading something.
Yeah,
Is it
yeah, there's nothing wrong. But still, if you have like taken up 16 rounds, so you should finish 16 rounds whenever you can. It's okay. All of a sudden, we'll not get taste for chanting. So that's why other activities are there, other services are there.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Chalo, I guess we can stop here. So thank you all very much. You have a wonderful Saturday. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Thank you so much.